What a wonderful day we get to live together right now. I just love the work that we get to do, and you're going to have a delightful time listening to Nikki Clarke today. And of course, I'm Steve Bonenberger. This is the Genius Path. And those of you that are fans of our program and followers of what we do, and thank God there are thousands and thousands of you. And we're just so humbled and grateful that you allow us in to have entrance into your life and allow us to bring such really great human beings into your life, because we think that what we do it's really a marvelous experience. And today you're going to meet one of the neatest ladies I've met in a long time. Her name is Nikki Clarke. You can find her at just Nikki Clarke with an E, Nikki 2Ks, NikkiClarkeNetwork.com. Go there, follow her. I ask all of our listeners always to support the people that come on our show. And if you're looking for someone that is really skilled at the business of networking and skilled at the business of understanding how to create clients and to be able to create revenue for yourself and to build a business in this environment, Nikki Clarke is going to be a person you'll want to get connected with. So, Nikki, I am honored to have you. You let me be on your show, and now you get to come and bless the folks that listen to us every single week and day. So, welcome. Good to have you on the program.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure and honor. I really appreciate it, Steve. Thank you.
Well, I'm just thrilled. I just love your spirit, your vivaciousness. You're so you just have this thing about you. And of course, what it is the spirit of God.
Thank
And
you.
I sense it in you, and I sense where you're heading with your life. Nikki, I want to start at the biggest hoop, okay, the biggest idea. And I asked you, I said, Nikki, I want you to tell me if you had genius in your life, and you do because you have found genius. I asked you, I said, tell our listeners, our viewers, what is your particular brand of genius? Let our folks know about you a little bit.
Well, thank you again for giving me this great chance to share a little bit about me and how God has, driven my life. And I remember at the age of 7 years old writing my first song. So I think that was an indication of the love that I had for words, and I think an angel of creativity that has been walking with me all my life and just pouring ideas in my head. And I remember performing the song for my mother, and I had written it out, so it was like I remember the melody and parts of the chorus. I mean, it was a full-on song that I wrote, and her mouth was gaping; she couldn't believe it. So that was very telling. And then later on, I developed a love for writing short stories. And in high school, I had, you know, written for a number of provincial. I grew up in Montreal, Quebec. Some provincial short story writing contests, and I won a few of them. So that was again another kind of drive for me to continue in this process of using words to express and to motivate and inspire. I just did it because I loved it, but I realized later that something that I could use to help people transform their lives. And by the time I hit college, I was determined to become a world-class journalist. And at that time, and I'm dating myself, it was in the late 80s, I had turned on the TV one day after class, and I saw this beautiful woman, and she was just so poised and eloquent. And I said, I would just want to be like her. I want to have a talk show just like Oprah Winfrey. And
Wow.
then she was my muse, so everything I did was leading up to having this talk show, using my writing, using my public skills ability, and that was actually enhanced by a lot of plays that I was in growing up. I was chosen as the lead. I had a lot of confidence speaking in front of people. I was kind of like the class ham. If the teacher asked us to read Shakespeare, I was the one saying it in like a Jamaican patois just to crack up the class, going to a very strict Catholic school for girls. I brought a little humor, and I thought I could do that by using different accents in traditional type of literacy settings. But anyway, so all of this leading up to the desire for me to have a talk show, but that didn't actually happen. I met my then ex-husband at university in Montreal, and I fell in love for the very first time. My very first boyfriend, married him in my early 20s, and moved to Toronto, Ontario from Quebec, Montreal, Quebec, and I was a stay-at-home wife and raised 3 kids.
Wow.
So that was the trajectory of what I was doing, went another direction. And I very happily, did what I wanted to do to raise my children. I didn't want to, put them in like, like nothing's wrong with that. I actually support childcare settings, but at the time I wanted to be the one raising my young children my own way, and decided to not work and stay home with them. And then later on, Steve, that plan changed because my marriage fell apart, and I ended up being a single mom of 3 young children. When I left the marriage, it was my children were 6, 4, and baby, 15 months old.
Wow.
And I had to start all over again, and work my way up. But luckily, I had a college diploma in social sciences. I had a degree behind me, and had a little bit of know-how to kind of finagle, find a job to support all of us. And I ended up getting a part-time teaching position in a community college, and I did that for 10 years. Very, very much enjoyed being a teacher of wonderful, wonderful women and men who've gone on and they're doing amazing things. And some of them they stay in touch with me and tell me how well they're doing. And just watching how the gift of teaching has, really transformed their lives. And I'm grateful for that. But towards the 10-year of the 10-year kind of experience of teaching, towards the last few days of that 10-year, I got a whisper, Steve, and the whisper got louder and louder, and that divine whisper was, that's not the plan I had for you. Remember what we had planned back in the 80s? It's now 2009. You need to get back to that plan. And I said, well, how am I going to do that? I don't have the know-how. I'm kind of out of that whole arena of career. I'm in something completely different. I'm teaching. And the response was, well, you're going to still teach, but your classroom will be the world. And it's going to be in front of the camera. I thought, oh, wow. Okay. So I made a leap of faith, Steve, and I said goodbye to teaching. And it was very, very painful because I really loved my students and really loved what I did. And I remember that day that the students had put on a little party, a farewell party for me. It was, oh, so many tears. But it was something that I had to do. I knew that I had to do it. So I contacted the owner of an online TV station, and I said, listen, I have this idea for a show. And I pitched it to him, and I said, it's going to be called And the Beat Goes On, and it's going to profile people from all walks of life, and they're going to come on the show, and I'm going to dare them to be authentic, to take off that mask and to show people who they really are. And through their candid sharings of what they've been through in life, then they're able to not only transform themselves, but the people who are listening. So the tagline would be transforming lives one story at a time. And the founder or the owner of the online station said, well, if you got the dime, I got the time. So I said, okay, I'm going to produce this. I'm going to finance it, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it. And I'm not sure how it's going to be received. All I know is that I have to do it. So as it evolved, over, I think, a span of 3 years, I started to notice, Steve, that people were coming from every angle. I didn't understand how this whim, this wish, this response to a divine whisper had become uh, bigger than I had ever expected. People were contacting me from Asia, from the United States. I had record label owners contacting me and saying, well, can you put my artist on? Because I like the exposure you have online. It's a great show. I like your integrity. I like how you handle the questions. You do your research. And I thought, wow, so this is what it is. Because I didn't plan for this, but I only took that chance and it paid off. So it became a business. This idea that had reached people from the different parts of the globe now was a business. And it was a business that was able to sustain me and my family through, different ways of, marketing, and that people were coming to me relying on my know-how on how to reach people online, and also how to publicize, how to, create branding and all this. And this is all the stuff that I taught myself. But it was received in a way where people believed in me and they trusted the value of what I was offering as a service. So fast forward, Steve, we are now in 2021. The show, I guess, started around 2009. Had the first name of And the Beat Goes On, and then someone said to me in the third year, after things started to really evolve, Nikki, don't hide behind a title. You have to put your name first. It's okay, you're asking people to take a mask off, so you've got to start being vulnerable, and there's strength in vulnerability. Just put the show into your name. And that's what I did. So it changed into the Nikki Clarke Show. And I started to peel off the layers of who I was as a persona and really started to share my story of trial and triumph and never giving up. And we are here now, and the show has won 12 awards in the community. And I've had people on the show like Abel. Abel was a 19-year-old, I think almost kicked out of high school. Came to me and asked me if he could perform live on the show. And Abel is now an international singer-songwriter, The Weeknd.
Wow.
So I'm so blessed to have had the opportunity to meet so many wonderful people. I still am, just like the show has enabled me to connect with wonderful people like yourself, Steve. And it's all God's plan. And I'm so glad that I listened to the whisper.
And I'm so glad you did. If you, for those of you that are involved in the Genius Path or want to be, and all of you should be, as you go through the Genius Path progression, she just gave you the pieces of it. It's so interesting listening to you, Nikki. I want you to do this. I love your story and I love listening to you. By the way, if I'm quiet on the show, it means I'm paying attention. And
I'm glad.
Means you've got my attention. I want you to do this. There are a lot of folks right now that are listening, gonna listen. The great thing about the work that both of us do is it just lives. It kind of has this eternity to it. And there are people that are going to hear your voice, Nikki, outside of your platform and in our platform. And they're going to want to know something about how to market what they have. They're lost, they're clueless, people have taken advantage of them. They've been swindled, they've been schnookered. All of those things have happened to all of us, hasn't it? And yet you have figured it out. So give them just some top level ideas of what they should be thinking about as they start to push out and to be able to put their genius into the universe. Nikki, what are some big ideas you can give them on marketing, on how to build a brand? Most people have heard those words, but like I said, they've either had bad experiences or no experience. So Help them, Nikki. Give them some suggestions, please.
Absolutely. I'd be delighted to share what I've learned through my own, uh, experience of growing a business organically, what I have
Yeah.
to say, because I didn't have mentors other than the mentor I haven't met, and I hopefully will meet one day, Oprah. But the fuel of running the machine of a business is something that you have to really understand what to do. And I made mistakes, and then I got better through the mistakes. So a lot of trial and error. But the very first thing you have to understand in operating in any business, particularly trying to boost your business online, is you have to know thy customer. You have to know your client. So that means you have to spend some time observing your target audience. You have to understand what motivates them. You have to understand what language they use. You have to understand what kind of behavior, whatever it is to elicit certain behavior to come to your business. All those things have to be kind of determined before you can make the next move. So you have to know who your market is, know your client, know your customers. So that's number one. And that may take some time. It may take some questions, throwing out field questions, or it can be done by a informal survey. It can be done by phone calls. It can be done by a mass email and seeing throwing out that cast and seeing what kind of fish come back. Or um, it could just be simple conversations. But gathering data is very important. So that's number one. Know your customer. Number two is you have to determine what vehicle of transmission you're going to use to send out messages. And when it comes to the online presence, there are different types of social media outlets that can be utilized, but not all of them work the same way. It's not a one size fits all kind of thing. You have to look at each one and determine if it's the one that fits your customer. So we've got Facebook, which is good for certain referrals in my own experience, because it's kind of like a mixed bag of different types of people, a lot of informal and formal mixed together. The great thing about Facebook is that it has a great way of sharing information, as well as creating groups. If you have like a professional group, it can be kind of customized to the way that you want people to reach you. You can invite people to certain events online. Then you've got Facebook Live. So a lot of ways that you can create that net, send out that net to get your customers to you. But it doesn't work for everybody. Then there's also LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a little bit more of a formal setting where you have to spend a little bit of time to develop a bio. But it'll pay off in the long run, because it'll give you a really kind of professional, with a quick glance, with all your credentials listed in your bio. It'll really kind of stand out in the sea of other people who are competing for the same customer, of why people should come and visit your website. And in fact, it is 64% of referrals come from LinkedIn. If you want serious referrals, 64% of those, if you spend a little time on LinkedIn, you'll get a turnaround of 64% of people will go to your website. Then you'll have second would be Facebook, and then Twitter would be third in that running. So the numbers speak for themselves. The proof is in the pudding. 64% is more than half. So that means you'll have to spend a little bit of time on LinkedIn, but again, it's going to be worth the sweat equity. The other thing too is You have Twitter, where you can tweet out something profound. However, you have to keep it short and sweet to, cast out a net and get people to go back to your website. 140 characters, so you have to be very careful with words, and then also to use the hashtag, or back in my day we called it the pound sign. But the hashtag is basically what it does is it creates a searchable link in a memory so that people can join communities together. Hashtag Steve Bonenberg, the Genius Path, and it'll gather all these people who have the same hashtag together, and then it'll keep growing. The algorithm is your friend. What an algorithm is, it determines the activity of your social media outlet, and also will indicate how popular people come and visit you, people come and visit your site. And also it'll increase your SEO. The SEO is the search engine optimization. So what that means is when you Google the Genius Path, because you've done all this wonderful work of hashtags and linking people together, when you Google the Genius Path, you're going to be number one on the page of Google, and that means that organically you've built this activity so that it'll be the very first. You always want to be first on any type of search engine page, whether it be Google or Bing, whatever you use, because typically people do not look for the second page to find you. So it'll have to be with a top 5, preferably number 1. So these are all ways that you can get noticed online. So number 3 is we talked about find your, know thy customer, determine what your vehicle is. And I haven't listed all of them. There's so many more. There's Instagram, there's TikTok, but I could go on and tell you. But the third part is this is where you can send your message. Once you know your customer, once you've decided the vehicle of transmission, then send your message. And it can be done a number of ways, but you always want to make sure that you are using information that is trustworthy, because there's so much competition out there. The thing that'll make you stand out amongst all your competitors is your trustworthiness. People always want to seek someone, something, some brand that they can say, yeah, I just trust the Genius Path. He resonates with me, but everything he said so far checked out, And the other thing about creating the feeling of trust is the pictures that are used are very consistent. They're clear. They match with what you're saying. So, for example, if I am the business of inspiration, I'm not going to put negative posts with swear words and stuff like that. That is not matching my brand. So you always want to make sure that it's consistent with what you are trying to share with people. The other thing too is that watch for spelling and grammar. I've worked with some people who have terminated relationships, not because the person they were working with wasn't a nice person. It was just that they couldn't spell, and they were just they weren't taking the warnings to do your proofing before you send back information. So make sure that you use someone who can help you edit, or there's a program online that I believe the first few features are free. It's called Grammarly. It's an application that you can download, and I have it on all my devices. So Grammarly, what it'll do is it will stop you in your tracks and highlight the mistake until it's fixed before you can go on to finish your sentence. And it's not that I don't know how to spell, it's just that my eyes keep getting better and better with age. And I'm forgetting things like periods or articles or stuff like that, which I normally wouldn't, but it's just my ideas are moving out fast, and sometimes I'm not always seeing correctly the way that it should be spelled. So Grammarly is your friend. So I think I've said a lot, but I hope I was able to give you a little
marvelous.
bit of
And
help.
we just have a minute left to hear. You're going to come back. Folks, she's coming back, okay? This is going to be a long-term deal. I just love this lady.
Thank you.
There are people that want to connect with you. There are going to be people that are going to want to have you coach them and help them tell them how they find you, Nikki. How do they find Nikki? And what? Just give them the way that they're able to connect with you, so that they can reach out and find you, and they can start a conversation, please.
Uh, that would be wonderful. Thank you. So you did mention the website. It's NikkiClarkeNetwork.com. You can also email me directly at Nikki@NikkiClarkeNetwork.com. And you can also call me. I'm old fashioned. I pick up a phone. We can talk. My number is 647-849-2776.
Her name is Nikki Clarke. She will be back. She's an author. She's a songwriter. We didn't get to talk about her song, but we will next time. She's a talk show host. She's been at this a long time. I love when she talked about the whisper of God. And we would suggest to you that today has been your whisper from God, to wake up that thing that's inside of you that's been there. Most of you have been sitting on it for years, if not decades. It's time for you to move into the genius that God has reserved solely for you. Well, Nikki, I thank you for your time. We will ask you to come back again soon. But until that day, I remind you, folks, that I'm Steve Bonenberger, and this is the Genius Path. Travel far.
Thank you. God bless everyone.